Yo, what is up, everybody? This is another unscripted commentary with me, Noah, and let's just jump right into this question this week. What world does your generation's parents live in? Where are the relational gaps? This is interesting. I want to be explicit here because I know my parents do actually watch these videos, that I am not talking about my parents specifically. I am talking about the generational relationships more specifically, and how generations don't understand each other. But my parents are part of Gen X. I am one of the older Zoomers. I'm a little bit. I'm like right on the edge of millennial, so I'm in that kind of intergenerational zone. So that is to kind of put that out there for anyone who actually like cares about any of that. But for the most part, I think we're just talking about these generational dynamics in abstract. So, what I see specifically is my parents' generation, for the most part, did not grow up with technology. And if they did, it was very limited. They had, maybe a video game console, maybe. And if they did, the games weren't crazy. They were Atari games or something of that like. If they did play video games otherwise, it was in arcades, and they were surrounded by other people. It was a very social activity. And, if they had access to a computer, for the most part, they didn't get access to, real kind of what we know as the internet until much later in their life. Probably, in their 30s, or, late 20s. So that's a major distinction. I think that's where a lot of this generational gap plays in, is a different relationship with technology. One of the other names for Generation Z is like a tech native. That for the most part, my generation has always known technology and has never not known technology. When I remember from my earliest memories, I was on computers, I was playing video games, I was around TVs, and not to a crazy extent. And I think it's even different today, right? Where you have Gen Alpha, who notoriously is called iPad babies, right? You'll go to a restaurant and there's just a little kid and their eyes are glued to an iPad, and you never see them leave the iPad alone. So, there is another dynamic here. But to an extent, I've always been around technology, and it's one of the primary ways I know of interacting with the world. Even here, I am speaking in a video out to the wide internet talking about this. This is kind of baked into my assumptions about the world. The way the world works is via technology. Whereas for them, for the most part, technology is a piece of it, and there is a very vibrant optimism about technology, especially among that generation. And if there's any pessimism about it, it's about seeing younger people interact with technology. So I think that is kind of the fundamental major gap. It's kind of what has split what normally is a handoff, in a relay race. In the past, every generation, has had their troubles with one another, but for the most part, they're kind of on the same page. Whereas technology has been changing so frequently that the way I grew up is fundamentally different than the way that my parents grew up and the way that my grandparents grew up. Within 3 generations of families, we have totally different interactions with all of this. And to a certain extent, the way my great-grandparents grew up is way different than how my grandparents grew up, right? The culture of the United States in the last, 100 years has totally shifted, has totally changed, and the world is not the same as it was before. And that's kind of the fundamental gap, and it's trying to find a way to express both the great parts about changing technology and the great opportunities it presents us, but also understanding that if you don't have the wisdom to manage it well, you're up a creek, for lack of a better term. So what we have right now is a lot of young people who don't have a lot of wisdom or experience getting handed vast amounts of power and influence. We see this with people like, Jake Paul, who are relatively young, but have a disproportionate influence on the world. And they don't know what to do with it. And, they kind of feed into whatever made them popular, and they kind of go crazy with it. And that's not usually the way it's been, right? The way it's been is somebody kind of has to prove themselves, work their way up, and then they are revealed to the world, but not even to the extent that it's happening now. I'm kind of going on a tangent here. So I want to kind of rein it back in. The landscape has changed, and these gaps are very difficult to fill. I'm sure this question is kind of in reference to a video I've made in the past about how to survive a failed generational handoff. And the fundamental piece of it is that what we desire, right, in our situation, I believe, is wisdom. I don't have the wisdom to deal with the unique situation that I find myself in. Encountering technology that no one else has ever encountered in their lives up until now. Nobody has had a lifetime of experience with, being around smartphones. And so I can't go ask my grandfather to tell me how to interact with my cell phone, because he doesn't know what that is to a certain extent, right? He knows generally, but he doesn't understand that experience. I meet regularly with a 75-year-old man who is part of an estuary that I run. We can talk about that some other time. And whenever somebody mentions social media, he has no clue what we're talking about. And he says this much. He's like, what is social media? That sounds so weird. Like, what is this? And, to try to explain that is incredibly difficult, because we don't have a lot of the same baselines. And so how does this get fixed? I don't know. I think to a certain extent, it's going to require a lot of work. And it's going to require, first knowing older people, and then also, trying to have them and you do the work to kind of bridge the gap towards each other. And then hopefully we can have some really solid discussions. Because otherwise, it's going to be a very lonely path and arduous path to kind of forge a way through all this. And we already see, some victims to it. I think about COVID and people being locked up inside, and people who have lost a lot of social ability during lockdown. Even people who are extremely close to me, saying before I did not use my phone, but now I'm spending a lot more time on my phone than I ever had before. So these are my thoughts. If you have any thoughts yourself, feel free to put them in the comments. And if you have a question, put it in the form in the description, and I will read it and probably make a video about it. So thank you, and I hope you all have an amazing day. Have a good one.